On this Thursday night, the nightmare before Christmas. Millions of travelers across North America at the mercy of monster storms.
We finally gave up on trying to get to Vancouver.
The festering frustration at airports and a look at the forecast. Let her learn.
It's her right.
The backlash to the Taliban banning women from attending university. Companion robots, the machines improving lives of Canadian seniors. And no dog left behind.
I gotta do some work and come back and get you, okay?
The Canadians saving canines from the horrors of Russia's war in Ukraine.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Extreme weather is the big story of the day and the next few days. Frigid temperatures and powerful storms are hitting parts of the U.S. already, thanks to a near continent-wide polar vortex. Weather warnings or watches are in place for most of Canada, too. Messy and dangerous weather is coming. That is certain to disrupt travel yet again. We'll have more on Canada in a moment, but we begin in the U.S., where temperatures are plunging. This fierce Arctic blast is sweeping across the U.S. Midwest and moving east, and the sudden drop in temperature is dramatic. In Denver today, it fell 58 degrees Fahrenheit in just 24 hours. Astoundingly, the biggest chunk of that drop came over a 2-hour span last night. Temperatures plummeted by 47 degrees Fahrenheit. The flash freeze and the record-breaking cold is forecast to extend for several days, just as millions of people are trying to travel for the holidays. Even President Biden is warning Americans to take the storm seriously. Jackson Proskow begins our coverage tonight.
It's the gift nobody wanted, a once-in-a-generation mix of extreme weather and very bad timing.
The extreme drop in temperature isn't something we see all the time.
Heavy snow, high winds, and brutal wind chills are sweeping across the U.S. 190 million Americans, that's half the population, are under some kind of weather alert.
Snow is coming, and importantly, frigid temperatures and high winds.
In parts of Wyoming, the wind chill reached minus 51 degrees Celsius, while Colorado froze so fast the National Guard was activated. Serious enough for U.S. President Joe Biden to warn holiday travelers to leave now while they still can.
It is dangerous and threatening. This is really a very serious weather alert.
Arriving just days before Christmas, the storm is wreaking havoc with planes, trains, and automobiles. Some travelers tried to get out early.
Whatever plans we have, we want them to be our plans, not the weather's plans or the airport's plans.
But thousands of flights have already been canceled, with few options for rebooking and most major hubs impacted at the busiest travel time of the year.
Well, I was originally supposed to fly tonight, and then obviously with the weather, I thought that's not going to happen.
It seems there's no escaping it. The freeze warnings extend all the way to the Gulf Coast, with wind chills bearing down on Texas, where the fragile power grid is at risk.
We expect to have sufficient generation to meet demand throughout this entire winter weather event.
Texas is also where thousands of Central American migrants have amassed at the border and on the streets, just as temperatures plunge. El Paso has opened a temporary shelter in its convention center. In many places, the worst impacts won't arrive until Friday, the busiest travel day of the year, when major East Coast airports and cities will see heavy snow and a flash freeze that could deliver one of the coldest and whitest Christmases in decades. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
Well, it's likely either you or someone you know have already had their travel plans disrupted, and brace yourself for more of that. Extreme weather is hitting Canada, too. Every part of this country, except Manitoba and Nunavut, is either under a weather warning, the areas in red, or a watch, the areas in orange, or those parts in yellow under a special weather statement. Plus, BC and Ontario are bracing for another wave of winter storms on what is the busiest travel period of the year. Touria Izri reports.
Christmas travel is usually stressful, but for thousands of Canadians, this is a new level of holiday exhaustion. This woman from Ottawa booked a trip to Hawaii, a much-needed break after her husband's health complications. But their connection in BC was cancelled.
Now we're worn out because of other problems we've been having. And we finally gave up on trying to get to Vancouver.
This mother is worn out too. She doesn't know when she'll get home to Nunavut.
How long have you been at the airport for?
Since 4 a.m. For nothing. With a baby on my back.
A powerful storm is moving into Ontario and Quebec, just as thousands of passengers are on the move for the holidays. Environment Canada is forecasting heavy snow, freezing rain, and winds as high as 90 kilometers an hour.
This one is going to be a big one, and there'll be a lot of impacts for a lot of people, and people should be avoiding to be on the roads if at all possible.
While BC's south coast is preparing for another round of severe weather. Things are still a mess on the roads and at the Vancouver airport after a storm slammed into the province earlier this week, forcing the cancellation of hundreds of flights.
There's no extra seats on planes. Everything is booked up, so if you need to rebook, you're going to rebook it a week later.
I'm frustrated. I got 3 kids at home. I want to go and spend Christmas with them.
The other issue complicating travel plans is that passengers say they can't speak to anyone directly over the phone, meaning they need to keep coming back to the airport to get answers.
Tried to call them. I called them 20 times. Nobody's talking to me.
Long delays and information in short supply, with storms threatening to derail Christmas plans across the country. Touria Izri, Global News, Ottawa.
Well, it is winter, so cold weather is not news, but the extent of this Arctic blast, what is being described in the U.S. as a bomb cyclone, is exceptional. Global News meteorologist Anthony Farnell puts this whole thing into perspective for us. Anthony.
Well, Donna, when you hear terms like that, meteorologists are referring to the intensification process of this storm. Right now, not a lot to it. The surface pressures are pretty high, but by tomorrow it will undergo bombogenesis. It'll become a bomb cyclone, deepening very quickly, bringing in moisture from the Atlantic. Our water vapor imagery shows the depth of this trough all the way down basically to the Gulf Coast, and then bringing everything back up north towards the Great Lakes. There are warnings all over the place, every Canadian province, most of the U.S. as well. Wind chill warnings all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico because of the Arctic air. It's been around for quite a while on the prairies. More unusual the further south you go. -8 still in Vancouver, waiting for another snowstorm potentially tomorrow, mixed with ice at times. And then this storm moves through the Great Lakes, blizzard conditions, the winds even into Atlantic Canada, 90 to 100 kilometers per hour. Nobody is spared from the extreme weather over the course of the next couple of days. The good news, Donna, it calms down and it warms up as we move towards the new year.
Well, that is some good news. Global News meteorologist Anthony Farnell, thank you. There are still more questions than answers about a 2020 national security document that alleges the Chinese government used an extensive network of community groups to conceal the flow of funds between Chinese officials and Canadian members of an election interference network. Global News has reviewed that document. It warned that influence operations were likely to be more persistent and pervasive in future elections. Tonight, Mackenzie Gray looks into who in the government saw that document and what, if anything, was done about it.
Well, Donna, senior cabinet ministers Melanie Joly and Dominic LeBlanc have both said they didn't know about the Privy Council document looking into Chinese foreign interference, but we are getting some clarity on who does know about it. The only minister that's confirmed to Global News they knew about the briefing, Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair.
I am periodically given briefings on classified material. I'm aware of that memo and receive certain information of it.
Justin Trudeau has been less forthcoming on what he knows.
I get briefed up on it all the time, and our intelligence and security agencies continue to act responsibly.
The memo, which sources say outlined a network set up by an arm of the Chinese Communist Party to try and interfere in the 2019 vote, was written by the Privy Council office. The main function of that department, provide documents and give advice to both the Prime Minister and cabinet ministers on key issues. The PMO and Privy Council are so intertwined, they even share an office. Former Foreign Affairs Minister Peter MacKay believes that on issues as sensitive as Chinese interference, the Prime Minister would have been informed by the PCO.
I would assume and would expect that his officials, the clerk of the Privy Council, his national security advisor, his cabinet ministers who have been aware, including Minister Blair, If they didn't bring it to his attention, they should be fired.
Global News first reported that Trudeau was briefed on Chinese interference in January 2022. But with the new PCO document from February 2020, the Conservatives are now questioning why Trudeau didn't act sooner on China.
It's been 3 years since then, and there is nothing to indicate that the Prime Minister and his government have taken this campaign of interference by Beijing seriously.
One thing we could see from the Liberal government to target foreign interference, a foreign agent registry. We heard from Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino saying the government will start public consultations on this issue in the new year. Donna?
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. The right to learn. Coming up, protests and condemnation as the Taliban bans women from Afghanistan's universities. A day after his surprise visit to Washington, his first overseas trip since Russia's invasion of his country began, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is back in Europe.
Їдемо з хорошими результатами, з тими, що дійсно допоможе.
On a stop in Poland, Zelenskyy said he got good results in Washington. He met Poland's president to discuss the trip and Ukraine's defenses. In a speech to the U.S. Congress last night, Zelenskyy appealed to American lawmakers to keep sending aid and weapons to his country.
The battle is not only for life, freedom and security of Ukrainians or any other nation which Russia attempts to conquer. This struggle will define in what world our children and grandchildren will live, and then their children and grandchildren.
President Biden committed to send another $2 billion U.S. in aid for Ukraine's defense, including the Advanced Patriot missile air defense system, which Zelenskyy has long requested. The Taliban has dealt another blow to women in Afghanistan. They have been forbidden from attending university and other educational institutions. And today, some brave women took to the streets in anger. This is near Kabul University. These women chanted their opposition to the ban on education. In Jalalabad, men joined the rallies in solidarity with the women. There are reports 5 women were arrested, along with 3 journalists covering the protests. The ban on women's education is being condemned by world leaders, but the outcries are doing nothing to change the fate of girls and women in Afghanistan who are slowly having their freedom eroded. Crystal Goomansingh reports.
Activists are using art and the power of social media to highlight the isolation of Afghan women and girls and how their futures are being controlled.
We make this hashtag, me and my friend, let her learn to, it means that it's her right. She needs to learn.
The Taliban announced Tuesday evening women would no longer be permitted in universities. Secondary schooling was previously halted for girls. Since the Taliban seized power in August 2021, women have risked beatings or worse protesting to keep rights they had under the government of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. National Taekwondo champion Mazia Hamidi fled to France last year. Women can't participate in sports, work where men are present, travel without a male chaperone, or go to school. She hopes the social media campaign will spotlight the realities of life for women in Afghanistan, the way the hashtag #LifeWomenFreedom illuminated the horrors around the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini and the oppression of women in Iran. In Afghanistan, women are expressing their despair.
So hurt. I'm so heartbroken, and I cannot just say them in words. I just want to yell.
The voice you hear is Sonia. She was studying international relations at Kabul University. Global News is not using her real name or showing her face for her safety.
If I had a wish, and I wanted my own country without all these dogs, without all these wild animals that are not letting us.
There are videos of men walking out of university exams and protesting with women, but it appears men in Afghanistan aren't as public in the fight for equality as those in Iran, for example. Advocates in Canada want to see Taliban leaders sanctioned and opportunities provided directly to women and girls.
support those organizations that run online classes, online schools, online programs, learning programs for Afghan women and girls.
Underground schools are forming. Sonia tells Global News she and her friends are sharing books and looking for learning materials online. As for public awareness campaigns and hashtags, she says they provide encouragement. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.
Automation Nation ahead, how robots are being used to reduce loneliness. One issue highlighted by the pandemic is the vulnerability of the elderly. They often live alone or they need care in an industry suffering from stretched resources and staff shortages. In the fourth and final story in our series, Automation Nation, Anne Gaviola takes a closer look at how artificial intelligence is being put to work in elder care.
It's only been a few days, but Louise is already attached to her new device.
Alexa, I love you. I think that's cute.
She's part of a pilot project offering up to 100 seniors a free Echo device with a screen, a companion robot. For 6 months, volunteers will try her out for free and give feedback.
Eventually, I'm going to be able to, every morning, have Alexa tell me, Louise, you have exercise at 10:30 today. Or there's a bingo this afternoon.
It's a partnership with Connected Canadians, a nonprofit whose mission is to help seniors get really comfortable with new technology.
If older adults don't keep up, they are effectively disconnected from the rest of the world, because not only are they not able to kind of learn and gather information, but we're also unable to benefit from the information and knowledge that they have amassed.
There are several Canadian pioneers in the field of companion robots too, designed to help those with mobility and memory issues, a tool for tackling feelings of isolation and loneliness.
So the idea is deploying these robots there for the well-being, mental well-being, but also in terms of reducing the level of anxiety and providing this layer of companionship.
Pilot project devices don't store personal information, but experts, including Ontario's former privacy commissioner, worry about the lack of consumer protection as artificial intelligence becomes more popular.
I'm a big tech fan, but you always have to know what's going on. You can't just take for granted that which you intended is actually taking place.
Amazon tells Global News it generally uses customer data to improve experiences with its products and services, but doesn't sell customer data to third parties without consent. But proponents say the benefits of tech advancements for an elderly population are enormous.
And I turned 100 in July.
Including this centenarian who makes voice calls to keep her social calendar filled.
So I use Alexa at least 5 times last night. So it was much easier. I didn't have to look for the numbers.
Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
The former CEO of a cryptocurrency empire has been extradited to the U.S. and indicted on multiple fraud and conspiracy charges. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried made a court appearance in New York. He was released on a record $250 million bail. He's agreed to stay at his parents' home until the trial. The 30-year-old is accused of defrauding investors by hiding flaws that led to his firm's bankruptcy and illegally taking their money for his own use. 2 of his former associates have now pled guilty to similar charges. If he's convicted, he faces over 100 years in prison. Saving man's best friend next, a Canadian charity's mission to rescue dogs from a war-torn Ukraine. We often report on the casualties of Russia's war in Ukraine, the terrible toll on humans who are caught in the fighting. But missing from the stories are the countless animals left behind, the pets that are lost or abandoned. Well, now a Toronto-based charity has been stepping in to help as many of the dogs left behind as they can. And as Mike Drolet explains, Ukraine's military recognizes their work as essential.
Somewhere in this war-ravaged gas station, Jeffrey Berry was told a dog may be hiding. Gingerly, he and his team made their way through the building until they spotted the scared puppy.
This is what happens, okay? Let's go.
There's no getting around it. Ukraine is one of the most dangerous places in the world to visit. Yet Barry and his team at the non-profit No Dogs Left Behind first visited this summer to feed and sterilize the pet population. They returned in early December at the behest of the Ukrainian military because of the problems a feral pet population can bring.
We don't do that, and we don't start vaccinating, sterilizing them, then they're going to have rampant infectious disease spreading, and we're going to have rampant procreation, and then you got the next problems, you know?
The plan was to tour the blue zones, areas that had been occupied by the Russians, but were now back in Ukrainian control.
Sterilization campaign. How do we pronounce it?
Desna.
Desna.
They brought 6 tons of dog and cat food and a team to set up sterilization centers in areas decimated by war. And as they soon learned, under constant threat of Russian bombardment.
We got hit in Kherson. Missiles landed 10, 15 meters from us. I mean, our cars went sideways, okay? And that's when we had two military personnel driving. They turned us around and said, we got to leave now.
In another location, they found a makeshift pound filled with dogs that had little hope of surviving. It's where Barry found a puppy he named Yuki.
I gotta do some work. I'm gonna come back and get you, okay?
And that they did. Yuki, a dog of war, ended up on their charter home to hopefully get adopted from their Toronto sanctuary.
Out of those crazy, emotional days, there's this one amazing moment.
Mike Trollet, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. I'm going to take some time off over the holidays. I hope you are able to rest and relax as well, and that any weary travelers you know make it to their destination safely. On behalf of everyone at Global National, thanks for watching, and we wish you peace and joy. Tonight's Your Canada is the harbor in Port de Grave, Newfoundland and Labrador, all lit up for the holidays. We'd love to see your festive photos of Canada. Please email them to viewers@globalnational.com. I'll see you again in 2023. For now, bye-bye.